Do you feel like life's being a little bit harsh on you right now? Or maybe it has been in the past? Totally relate. So, today, what I'm going to talk about is getting trained so that you can be a better person. And if you stay until the end, I have an extra point for you then as well. As always, if you want to connect me further, you can find my links in the show notes below. I've admittedly had a couple of months which have been very challenging. Things coming in left, right, and centre. Personal and a little bit of professional experiences. Maybe not so much professional, more personal sort of experiences. And in my life, I've had like personal and professional challenges across, right? And I'm not going to lie, like there were times where I was quite. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh no, I'm just always like confident, like fully energetic and super happy and joyful. That's not the case, right? I like to be in that state the majority of the time. But like, if you see anyone talking about how rich and happy and successful they are all the time, I just don't believe them because that's what people want you to believe to kind of like buy into them. But I'm just honest, like that's not always 100% the case, right? And what I've realized is it gives me an opportunity to develop and use my tools even more, see what's working and feel into things a bit more and then share what's worked for me. And that's what I do on my podcast, of course. Now, I've realized for me that like it was almost being like I'm the trainer and I'm sharing or teacher and I'm sharing lessons from my life. And I believe we're all teachers in our own ways, right? Yeah, I was being trained as the teacher. I was being trained, given some interesting lessons, right? And that's what I think has really, really helped me. Now, I'm going to give you some points for how you can work through maybe a tough time or you think life's been a bit challenging on you right now, because you could hear me say, oh yeah, it's training you to grow. And you think, oh, that's great, right? But I'm always a big fan of practical tips. What can we do? And that's one of my big frustrations in personal growth, apart from the best teachers I've learned, is you hear this very vague, oh, be grateful for what you have. Oh, go for your goals, dream big, all these kind of very vague statements. So I like to be very specific in what I'm doing, what's the routine, and practically putting things into practice. Because there's knowing intellectually something, and then there's knowing it in a deeper level when you're actually living it. So how's it helping you maybe by some of those voices going like, oh, life's really hard, it's a big challenge? Because if you're anything like me, it didn't do me any favors. So I want to go into some practical points that, like I say, have really helped me. Number one, train the mind to focus on what you want very, very regularly. Because the mind has a habit of, I found in my experience and what I've learned over time from what I've studied and other people, even coaching, is a lot of us have a tendency to focus on what we don't want. And I talk about this a lot. However, I've discovered that I have to schedule in time in the day to remind myself what I want. So it's like easy to go like, oh, I don't want to be in this frustrating task right now. I don't want to be in this career. I don't want to be lonely. I don't want to be, or in the past, like things like, oh, I don't want to be this broke, or I don't want to be this weight, and all these kind of things, right? That's focusing on what you don't want. And what happens is, in my experience, you get more of it when you look at it that way, try to run away, as opposed to moving towards what you want. So scheduling time, I'll do this like 3 to 5 times a day at least 3 times, sometimes 5 times a day. I've written down what I want, and then I look at it and I read it with emotion and music. You can just schedule that in your day. You could do like couple of minutes, schedule like a couple of minutes each time, and then schedule it like 3 to 5 times a day, just reminding yourself what you want. Not what you don't want, what do you want? So for example, if you're like, oh, I don't like, maybe it's a weight thing, maybe it's like, I don't want to be this weight anymore, I just feel like heavy, sluggish, and I don't feel great about myself. What do you want? You want maybe high energy and you want to be in a certain shape, right? Amazing. And then what you're going to do is you're going to read that statement very regularly through the day and get excited, put a smile on your face. At first, it may be difficult to feel, but with practice and repetition, if you're doing this 3 to 5 times a day, more if you want, you're really going to embed this in. Right. The second one, allow yourself time to release the negatives. So I've just talked about focusing on what you want. I was on an interview last night actually, and I gave her this answer as well because she was asking me specifically for mums, what, because she was talking as a mum to kind of her dominant audience being a mum. Even though she invited me on to talk about self-esteem and confidence from my podcast topics and mental health and those kind of things. I was sharing these 2 points. I was saying, although you've, and I thought I wanted to make an episode today, although you've got a focus on where you want to go, that's really crucial. The other crucial bit is allowing yourself time to release and feel the not so good emotions. If you do one and not the other, I think for me it's been slightly limited because I've been in that place where I'm like, I want this, I'm going to go for it. But actually I've got all these negative things suppressed into my body and I'm just not paying attention to them, so they can't be released. So I found it's really, really critical personally for me that I allow the release, but I allow focus on what I want as well. And then how can you do that? You can do that. My biggest favorite tool is breath work. And I do like a deeper session, ideally once a week, sometimes once every 2 weeks. And you could do just journaling. You could scream into a pillow, but just giving yourself time. If it's especially intense, I'd say find time each day. I had to do that when I've been through some tough situations. Like last year, I had a couple. And I'd have to sit there and I'd really scream into a pillow and I'd cry and all sorts of things, but that allowed me to release stuff. And then I'd focus on what I wanted. Now, if you, like I say, if you focus too much on what you want and don't allow yourself to feel, then that just builds up. The other way though, if you're just like feeling all the time into sadness or the anger, I'm all for that. I'm 100%. That's why I'm promoting feeling your emotions, sitting with them. And sometimes we're going to need to be in that place more than moving forward, especially if we just come out of a really tough situation. Maybe you've lost someone, end of a relationship, end of a job, end of a career, end of a business or something like that. You'll need to sit with it a bit more. What I found though is some people can live there for years. They can be like, I'm feeling sad about this that happened years ago. And it's not to say you shouldn't feel it, right? I want to be really clear about that. Like, people lose other people. You need to feel those kind of emotions, right? And it's probably going to go like some things people are going to feel for a lifetime if they've lost someone very close to them, for example. I know I've lost people very close to me, and it's never going to go away. But over time, with the tools, it's, I don't need to like dwell on it, like not dwell on it, but like kind of be in the past and living all the time. I've known people who have, I'm just going to call this out, like had relationship breaks up years ago, even though it was a really nasty relationship, and I feel for them. But like that stopped them moving forward a few years later, getting out there and meeting someone because of the story of like, yeah, I need to feel this more. It's like, so I think there's a balance between the two personally. It's not 50-50 all the time. It's just saying there's both of these sides. And then the third side, in order to go through some of these tests that life puts us through. And then the third one is to celebrate all wins anytime or any action you take. It's not about necessarily getting a certain outcome. If, for example, you go to the gym when you're wanting to lose that weight, and then you're celebrating that. You turned up to the gym. Great, amazing. And then the more you celebrate, the more you want to do more of it. Now, I've got a final point for you as well. Just want to mention again, if you want to connect with me more on social media, you can find my links in the show notes below. The final bit of guidance I would give you on this when life's training you or really challenging you is to just write down a list of all the times of tough times or perceived tough times or challenges. Use empowering words if you can, that you've overcome in the past. Maybe there's something you thought, I'll never get around this, and you did, right? Or it just like seemed horrible at the time, but you overcame it. Because when you can start writing down those lists, I'd invite you to write at least 5 things, 10 ideally, more if you can, of things that you've overcome in the past, because that's going to remind the brain that it's overcome things in the past, so therefore you're capable of doing that right now as well. So that's what I got for you. I appreciate you for being here, and remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.